Shooters Connection offers products for competition shooters by competition shooters. With over 80 years of combined competition shooting experience, Shooters Connection is staffed by master and grandmaster shooters who live the shooting sports every day. We offer same-day shipping. Shooters Connection also sponsors over 100 of your matches every single year. So when it comes to finding everything you need to compete as a beginner or a seasoned grandmaster, Shooters Connection is the only name you need to know. Online at shootersconnectionstore.com.
Welcome back. This is the Hit Factor with Jeff and Jeremy, and joining us, Mr. Potato from Maine is once again back with us. Did you comb your hair tonight, Potato?
I cut my hair. Well, I didn't, but somebody cut my hair for me.
Oh, okay. I thought it was different. I thought, yeah, I wasn't sure what he had going on. I just thought he's trying to just make himself look better for the podcast.
That's about 6 months since I had a haircut, and my son came home with a haircut, and I was like, "Oh wow, okay, I should probably do something about that."
How old is your son?
10.
10. So right now my son is 4.5, and basically every time he gets a haircut, it's like he ages 6 months, right? It's like, and then he stays the same age, then you get a haircut and he ages. How does that keep going as they get older?
I think it goes over like onto the other side where they get a haircut and they look younger.
Oh, okay. Is this because at 10 he already has a beard like his dad, and so like he has to shave his beard off?
He's planning on having a beard, but he's not there yet.
Oh, okay.
He's planning on it.
He said, "I'm gonna have a big beard." Okay. You do that, buddy.
That's great.
You should start now.
Jeff, speaking of hair, it has been a few weeks or a month or two since we've had a follicle check, and
let's go.
I'm not sure what we're gonna have going on here.
Yeah, I haven't been terribly consistent with some of the routine. Like, I always do something, but I don't always do all the things that I was planning on doing. So there you go. I'm not seeing it. I don't think you're like, you have a good workout philosophy, and like your philosophy is wake up and at least do something. Yeah.
I'm not sure if that philosophy transfers over to hair follicle growth whenever looks like a cue ball.
It doesn't look like a cue ball.
It's pretty shiny.
But, we still got like 7 months to go, right?
Is that the deadline?
6 months. Yeah, I was going to do it all year.
You're committed to a year of it? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you got roughly 6.5 months.
Yeah, we're only like 2 or 3 months in, so it is what it is. I'll try to.
Okay. And you're 3 months from your foot race?
Yeah.
August?
That's going to be rough.
Area 3?
That's going to be rough.
Second weekend of August. Sorry, I'm choking on water. I haven't done any speed training in a while. I'm still not too worried about it, to be completely honest. But Jeff has cut down. Like, his weight is down. Yeah. Are you down into the 180s consistently, or was it just kind of like one day you got into the 180s?
No, I'm like hovering in the low 190s, and then I'll occasionally hit like 189. So that's not really trying very hard. It's just eating less junk.
When does your speed workouts, when do they start?
Oh, dude, I don't know. I'm just trying to run like 3 times a week. Just trying to get on my feet. That's pretty much all I'm doing. Like, I try to do a longer run of some kind on the weekend, and then I try to do a short run with some core work, and then I do like a medium run. So that's what I'm doing right now. Having issues, and I always have issues with my calves, dude. Like, anytime I've ever tried to run, my calves get so tight and they get knots and stuff in them. It's tough. So I'm trying to figure out how to solve that. That's
Are you
Jeff's
a
starting
foam
to
roller kind of guy?
yeah. Yeah, dude, I'm rolling, I'm stretching, I'm massaging. I got some like CBD cream. I'm trying everything to get those calves to loosen up and be less painful.
I just walk outside and start running.
Yeah. Yeah, this like my calves have always been an issue. They get so tight. They like lock up almost.
Huh.
Yeah. Hey, I got a question for you. When you're working in your shop, like working on guns, do you sit down?
It's kind of half and half. Depends on what I'm doing. I probably spend more time on my feet than I do sitting.
Mm-hmm.
Because like at the mill, I'm standing up. My vise, most times if I have like a part in a vise that I'm filing on, then I'm standing because the height that it's at and stuff. But then if I'm at just the bench, where I don't actually need the vise, then I'm sitting down usually. So it's kind of probably 60-40 or so. I don't pay that much attention to it, but
Yeah. I was just curious because I've been trying to stand up more because, yeah, I mentioned that before. Just trying to stand up more. And I was curious what your days normally looked like. Because I feel like the matches we've shot together, usually by the end of it, like I'm way more gassed than you are, usually.
yeah, I mean, it's pretty rare that I feel like fatigued at the end of a match, even if it's an all day thing.
Really? Dude, I am gassed at the end of matches.
Are
Really?
you really physically?
Yeah. Like I'm done.
Maybe you try a lot harder inside the stages than me, but I really like. I walk off like 10 stages and I feel mentally fatigued, but physically it's like, yeah, I could go for a run. I could go do my workout right now. Honestly, I could like go shoot drills. It's like some of the best practices of my life have been after a local match. I'll shoot 5 stages. I won't like what's happening. I'll go hit the range and I will just run myself ragged for a couple hours.
I could after a local that, shoots till noon or 1 o'clock. I'm talking about like a 10, 12 stage match.
I could after that. Honestly, I shot a second match after an area match in a single day. I went and shot an outlaw match that night and I had a great time. Totally focused. Total freedom. I wish I could always do that. It's like you shoot an area match, you do what you actually do, and you go and you shoot an indoor outlaw match against a bunch of people who don't know you, and you feel a lot better about yourself.
Right, yeah. So why do you have such good stamina?
Me?
Like, what do you attribute that to?
Oh, I have an answer, but I want to hear potatoes first.
I bet I know what yours is.
Nervous energy, and so I don't sit still. Like I'm wound pretty tight. Well, I move a lot every day, like a lot, and I work like a sit-down desk job, and I'm up and moving, and I invent excuses to move, and I take all my calls walking in circles.
Yeah,
and and I've always been a runner.
Are you ADD?
Not a very fast runner. Just a little.
Just a small amount of ADD.
Just a small.
Yeah. I could see that. I mean, I think you use it well for you use it to be productive, which is good. But
yeah.
Jeff, I'm hearing one person who is strong and like manly and like they don't whine a lot, and then I'm hearing another person who doesn't seem to exhibit those qualities quite as often.
Hey,
I don't know Jeff's actual shooting performances.
While we're talking about this, I got something I want to show you guys. This was from the Ozarks Classic here.
Does it say you won?
It says
it's hard to read.
Single stack overall first place. Jeremy was shooting that match, by the way.
Oh, was he in single stack?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look at that. I mean,
Yeah,
that's pretty
it
cool
must
looking.
be. It must imagine if Jeff actually had to like drive and like handle any sort of accommodations or anything like that before one of these matches. If he's getting tired just getting through the match, if he had to actually do that.
Yeah. Well, I got to give you some sort of excuse, Jeremy.
I mean, like, yeah, like you shot better. That still doesn't like totally negate the kind of the sissy part that's coming out at this point. But maybe that's just
But, yeah.
Oklahoma. I don't know. People are like they grow up different in Oklahoma.
No, I mean it's definitely me. Like I get tired.
Oh, Jeff froze.
I don't know what it is. Are you still
All right,
frozen?
Jeff's frozen, but we got Potato here. Okay, power rankings just came out, and power rankings have changed in that in previous it has just been basically me and whatever my opinion was for the power rankings, and for this time I added Potato on to make this a committee power ranking, even though it's only a committee of 2. That's where we're at right now. We may add more to it in the future. It just kind of depends on if I find somebody who pays enough attention to the sport, and then they also seem to have a decent understanding of who's good and what it takes to be good. And part of that, like I do get feedback on these power rankings, and some of the stuff that people say, like it makes me just discredit a lot of what I don't want to see what their whole list is based on some of the comments that I get on some things. But Potato generally, I agree with, although he has one on his list that I don't agree with, but that's okay. So the power rankings, we did a top 12 instead of just top 10. Because since we had an extra voice, it kind of made that a little bit easier. But we do have some shakeups to where it started at in the beginning of the year. And you can go on to our Instagram and you can see like what we started the year with the power rankings. I'm not going to go over those, but as of right now, so this is we're at May 15th right now as we're recording this. This is our power rankings. Number 1. Jacob Hetherington, unseeded Nils. Nils is number 2. And then Max made a big jump from my initial power rankings. Max jumped up to number 3. And Christian Seiler's down to 4. Mason Lane is 5th. Sal Luna is 6th. And JJ Rakaza is 7th. On, I think, virtually every power rankings I've had, it's been that same top 7. Like the top 7 is just like those are the 7 best shooters in the sport currently. And on my list and on Potato's list, our top 7 were the same top 7 people. While there may have the orders were different, there was the same top 7 people. So then going on, newcomer to the list is Gianni Giordano at 8th. John Browning also, I think this is his first time on the list at number 9. Scott Brown is back there at 10. We have Aaron Edens at 11th and John Vliger at 12th. So how we ended up with to get our final order, what Potato and I did is I came up with a list of top 15, just kind of who I thought the current top 15 best shooters in USPSA based on historical and more precedence on recent performance, but historical precedence does matter too. So I came up with a top 15 and Potato did the same. And what we did basically is on each one of our lists, whoever got first got 15 points. Whoever got second got 14 points, so on to whoever's 15th, they got 1 point. And then I just added the point totals for each of our lists, and whoever had the most was in first and second and so on.
Okay.
Jeff, is our list crazy?
No, I don't think it's crazy.
You have any disagreements?
I'm scrolling back to it here. Okay, so Jacob, Nils, Max, Christian, Mason, Sal, JJ, Gianni, Browning, Scott, Edens, Flagger. I mean, nothing like jumps out at me, really. I mean,
What does? Who does?
nothing really jumps out to me, honestly. I mean, I would think, like, my initial reaction is like, oh, Christian should be higher, but he hasn't really shot any matches, so.
Yeah, I think there's a natural decay that happens with even phenomenal shooters. If they're not shooting, how can we rank their current power?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, that was, I would assume if Christian sees this, I mean, I tagged him, so I assume he will. He's seen him in the past, that he won't love being fourth. Like, he's probably going to be pretty upset about that. But he hasn't, that I've seen, he hasn't shot a major USPSA match yet this year. So he's, I mean, honestly, like, he's only fourth based on historical performance, which maybe that's being too generous, but I think if he did show up to a match, he's going to be really, really good. So, I thought fourth was fine. Potato, after, like, because this list isn't exactly what yours list or exactly what mine. Were there any kind of surprises in how it shook out?
So we mentioned this earlier, but I think it was our 5 to 8 were identical as well. So not only do we have the same names, 1 to 7, just in different orders, but our sort of 5 to 8 were the same order. We generated these lists independently. And so I think we're probably looking at similar things. And so multi-division threats like that automatically moves someone higher, someone who could win in any division, but recently has come in third or fourth in 3 different divisions. I'm going to think higher of that person than someone who's come in second in the same division for the last several majors.
Right.
I don't see any surprises. I kind of think we're in a blessed moment where there's a lot of talent contesting big matches. And there's people who can win all throughout this list. However, in any match where one of these 12 names is in that division, I think you're going to be hard pressed to find somebody else winning it.
Yeah.
That's how I kind of think about the power ranking.
Yeah. And our top 12, like, so these top 12, actually, our names were all the same for the top 12. Our names for 13, 14, and 15 were actually all different. But our names for the top 12 were all the same. So there was actually kind of a big point gap going from 12 to 13. So even though I had already decided we were going to stop at 12, it made sense to kind of stop at 12. I had Jacob first in my list, and you had Jacob second. You had Nils first, and I actually had Nils
third.
Mathematically, you had Nils third. That's the only way to get to 28 if I gave him 15.
Yeah, I had Nils third. Is that right?
Yeah,
that's correct.
I'm looking at it.
And so basically what that was, it was real simple. I mean, as great as Nils is, and historically, he's great, but Dragons Cup and Area 6 were our two biggest, I mean, those are the two biggest matches we've had recently, and really the two biggest matches of the year so far as USPSA is concerned. I'm personally not equating Steel Challenge into this. I wasn't factoring it. But Nils was third at Dragons Cup, or no, he was fourth, right? I think he was fourth at Dragons Cup. So he didn't win there. Max won that match. And at Area 6, Jacob won Area 6 and Nils was second there. So I had two people that had beaten Nils, and he hasn't won, in CO, and he won Western States earlier. As far as the big matches with lots of competition, he didn't win any of the two recent ones. So I went ahead and dropped Nils down to third for that. I just thought Nils' performance at Dragons Cup was so good that, like, he deserved a big bump there.
You meant Max, sorry.
Max's performance at Dragon's Cup. Yes, I'm sorry.
And this is not a excuse for anyone, and people win matches on the first day all the time. But Max shot Area 6 before anybody else. And when I look at his stage-by-stage performance, he didn't make mistakes. Mm-hmm. So it looks like he shot a pretty conservative, in-control match, which was good enough for 98% of the eventual winner. And the two people chasing him knew what they had to beat. Every time they walked onto a stage, they knew what the factor was.
Yeah.
And in the end, Jacob won half the stages in the match.
Right. Okay, so talking about Jacob, if Nils is going to be dethroned as kind of the de facto number one, like Jacob's the guy I think most capable of doing that. Like if somebody's going to walk into a match and really kind of destroy it, Jacob probably has more potential for that maybe than almost anybody in the sport. I don't know if anybody has the ability to just totally dominate like Jacob can. And he doesn't do that every match, but when he does, there's almost nobody catching him.
And everybody's talking about it when he does it too.
That's my sense of it. And so, yeah, I think Jacobs deserve it to be number one. And Max, you talk about Max shooting first and shooting actually that's better for Max. Like I think he would actually prefer that, to not know what other people have shot. And I think Jacob and Nils, the guys that beat him at Area 6, they probably, I'm not talking to them specifically, but they would probably rather know what they need to beat. And that's just kind of a personal preference, but I think that probably played into Max's favor, just to be able to shoot Max's game and not have to worry about anything else. Mason,
and Nils and Jacob shot opposite schedules. And so they shot opposite zones. So they also knew what both of them had done going into their second day.
Yeah,
so
the second day they were
strategy. There was a lot of layers there.
Yeah, and you could see. I mean, Nils posted videos of him shooting, and you could see, like, he knew he was trying to catch Mason. You could see him pressing more than you see Nils normally press on a stage. You could see him kind of trying to make up those 30 to 40 points on the last couple stages that he was trying to make up. Mason moved up a few spots. We both had him at 5th, and I mean, Mason's shooting really well. That top 4 is going to be tough. And, if he had shot Area 6, maybe he would have had a chance. I think he could have had a really good chance to win, as well as he shot at Dragon's Cup. So that's for Mason to be 5th. Like, that's really not a slight on Mason. It looks like, oh man, he's all the way down at 5th. It's like, man, where else do we squeeze you in up here? Because same with Saul in 6th. Saul has been dominating production this year so far. We'll just see. He shot CO Nats last year, and so I'm curious if he's going to shoot CO Nats this year.
He did the year before as well. So he did in 21 and 22.
Okay. So he's done it the last 2 years. So you would think he's going to. JJ's will probably not love this list either. Being that's as low as he's been, I think, on this list. So JJ probably won't love that. He didn't have a great Dragons Cup. I mean, he was still over 95%, I think, but yeah, just not there. And then, we both had Gianni at 8. Gianni had a really fantastic Dragons Cup. He did shoot really well. Infinity, which I think Potato probably factored Infinity maybe a little bit more than I did. I didn't really look at Infinity that match a whole lot, but just his performance at Dragons Cup was really good.
So at Infinity, he was 8 points off Seiler shooting the slide ride, and I don't know if I've ever seen Gianni in the results shooting a slide ride dot.
No sort of slide ride that I know of. I mean, I know he has shot open some. Like, I'm pretty sure he shot some open, but not not CO, which was his option before this. So since he shoots for infinity, you wouldn't think he'd be shooting it too much CO. At least he used to. I don't know if he's still currently shooting for infinity. But I know he was.
Yeah, so I factored that in for the same reason of, and my understanding is he had shot in open in the past, but it demonstrated an ability to pick up a different division and be extremely competitive. On short notice. Yeah.
No, I mean to pick up and learn a dot and shoot it to the level of a guy that shoots nothing but a dot, pretty much. That shows a very quick learning curve. A lot of people, some people can do that. A lot of people cannot. And then our only tie, I was surprised. Our only tie on this list was John Browning and Scott Brown, and I broke the tie just simply because John Browning was ahead of Scott at Dragons Cup. That was just simple. I think I had John a place higher than Potato did on his list, and so I put John up higher. So John and Scott both shot well. Aaron Eddins won Dragons Cup, and he was second at Area 6. Really, really tight second place at Area 6. And then John Vlager he's just been a perennial, really consistent perennial guy that I think we both had in 12th place. And then the others receiving votes, I had Brian Jones. Potato had Tom Castro. I had Miriam Brantley. Potato had Sauerland. I forgot Sauerland's first
Joseph Sauerland.
Yeah.
Joey Sauerland.
Joey Sauerland. Then I had
We'll
Brennan.
all know his name in a year.
Yeah, seems like he's really on the up and up. So I'm actually really happy to have these adding these others receiving votes. I'm kind of happy to have that because it kind of gives a little bit of recognition. Maybe some people coming up, names that other people don't know or recognize as quickly. They can kind of start seeing those. And then Brennan Conaway. Honestly, I don't know a lot about Brennan Conaway. I mean, he just won Area 6, and beat some. He beat Aaron. He beat
Tilly.
Chris Tilly. Was there? I'm trying to think who the other. Who the fourth place open shooter was. So I mean, he beat some really good shooters, and so I had him at 15th on my list, and then Potato had Justine Williams at 15th on his list.
And I put Justine there because of the divisions and because of the finish at Western States. I believe she was second behind Nils.
She was second. I don't think Justine is a fantastic shooter. She beat me at Western States. I'm not like she's unbelievably good.
Nationals.
She's
by
2
match points.
She is unbelievably good. But she was second at Western States. That's middle of the winter. There's nobody practicing for that match, and that was less than 90% of Nils. So Nils, nobody was within 10% of Nils at that match.
But that was true at single stack nationals, other than the Dave Savigny exception last year. Fall.
True.
Being 10% off Nils with a single stack gun is everybody shooting single stack, not named Dave Savigny.
Well,
the last 3 single stacks matches he shot.
That's not untrue there. But so that would put her ahead of Brian Jones and Miriam Brantley, Brennan Conaway.
Yeah, I don't think that makes sense. I agree with you there. And I was trying also really hard to get out of my Carry Optics bubble because I can name another 10 names in Carry Optics who I think if they picked up a iron-sighted gun or an open gun, they would be competing with a lot of the names on this list, but they haven't. And it's sort of such a deep pool right now that it can be hard for the sort of next tier down of Carry Optic shooters to even emerge.
Yeah, I mean that's carry optics is so deep. You can go down to 10th place or something like that and carry optics at a match that Jacob's winning, or Niels is winning, or Max is winning, and they're still in the 93 percentile, right? 94 percentile. They are not there is not a huge gap there. One guy that I really wanted to bump up onto the list was Jeff's boy, Jared Clanton. He had a really great Dragons Cup, but then he shot Area 6, and he was really off the pace at Area 6, much more so than at Dragons Cup. And so, if for somebody trying to break in, you kind of need a little bit more consistency than that. And so he just didn't have it. It's kind of surprising. Neither of us, we didn't have Casey Eusebio was not on either of our lists. Shane Coley wasn't on either of our lists. I haven't seen a match result from Casey other than Steel Challenge so far this year. So
yeah, I haven't seen him shoot in 2023, so I can't really assess.
Right. I agree there. So he just hasn't shot. And then Shane was at Area 6 and had an okay match, but not a guy that looks like he's ready to win a national championship based off that match. And that's Shane. I mean, Shane's kind of, he goes hot and cold maybe more than any of the other top guys. In my opinion, he really kind of.
He also shoots more matches than almost anybody who's a top shooter. Yeah, he has one of the. I mean, there's a couple other people like that, but he's up there in terms of total matches shot.
I mean, Nils after signing with Canik, he shoots probably the most matches of anybody.
Yep.
But yeah, Shane also shoots a lot of matches. But those are the power rankings. I love being able to talk about it, putting that out there. If you guys disagree, you think we have some big oversights, let us know. I actually do, because there are names that I don't know. I'm having to look some of this stuff up, and I hadn't seen those. So what did they do at Nationals last year? What did they? Luckily the competitor app allows you to easily kind of see somebody's results. But if we've missed somebody, let us know.
And what I love about when you brought this on last year with the power rankings is it wasn't a prediction of who's going to win nationals. It's a snapshot in time. At this moment, today, if you've got to name 10 or 12 of the most dominant shooters, who are they and why? Yeah. And that doesn't mean that they're going to win the next match they shoot. But it does mean that sort of anyone who's on this list could win any match they shoot. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's it's a little bit confusing for some people as far as the parameters of how are you weighting this, right? Do you as Potatoes talked about, does somebody get more credit because they shoot multiple divisions? I mean, that somewhat weighs into it, certainly. This is USPSA power rankings, not open power rankings. We're not ranking just by division. So that certainly does. But if you have a guy that's extremely dominant in a pretty much a single division, like a Christian, I mean, he dabbled a couple matches in CO last year, but basically he shot open his whole career. If they're extremely dominant, then they can still be considered the best shooter in USPSA, for sure.
Or Max, and people will say, well, Max only shoots carry optics, and for really good professional reasons, he shoots carry optics. His employer wants him shooting carry optics, and so he does. But 6 out of 10 years from 2004 to 2014, he won every Open Nationals.
Right. Yeah, Max has proven himself in Open. There's no doubt that if he picked up an open gun, he would be shortlisted on anyone who's sort of paying attention. Open as well. Yeah, I mean, he's Area 6. He's 96% of the Open winner with a carry optics gun or something like that. It's extremely high up there. He's not far off. I think he's even won a few big matches.
He's won a couple area matches shooting carry optics.
Right. So yeah, there's no question when somebody's shooting like that you give him an open gun, he'd have no problem going back and being one of the best shooters in the country, shooting an open gun as well. And how we weight like history versus current performance. Like all that's tough. I think that's why it's neat, because it's just kind of a personal preference. It's a sense of who do I think it is, and that's debatable, and that's the point. Like it's not an ELO ranking. It's not. Yeah, we can just look at match results, and well, Jacob beat Nils and Nils beat Max at Area 6, so then we have to rank it Jacob, Nils, Max. I mean, the rankings did end up being that, but that wasn't. There was more that went into it than that. So anyway, that's the power rankings.
And it gives you something to, it gives me something to follow along at home, right? I watch match results roll in pretty much every weekend, which is a little bit artistic of me, and I recognize that because I watch major matches roll in, but I also watch locals. Like Saturday evening, like as I'm getting ready for bed, I sort of, select the filter on practice score for USPSA matches, and I click on every match where I know somebody who shoots at that club.
Wow.
And then I sort of see how people are doing. And then when I see their name show up at majors, it makes sense. I'm like, yeah, this guy's been winning locals for 6 months, and now he's third, in limited at a big match, and it's not a surprise.
This is why I brought Potato on to be part of the power rankings. I'm not going that deep. I'm not scouting people's local matches.
It's left over from watching sports. I used to be really into soccer, and if you're into soccer, like there's 4 big European leagues, so there's 24 games on Saturday. You can't watch them all. So what do? You like scroll through the results, and you sort of look at, you try and interpret what happened in games you didn't watch.
Yeah.
I treat USPSA like that.
No, I love it. And practice scores made that a little bit easier to be able to do that.
Way easier.
All right, so we had a question. I'm trying to find it. From B. Heller. Jeff, do you have his question? It kind of played into the power rankings anyway.
I don't have it up right here. I'll find it. Yeah, so, okay. Here it is. You ready? You want me to read it?
Yep.
Okay, so it says, not that it's super relevant to me. All right, we'll skip this part. So
it's
since you've been breaking down, since you've been breaking down top shooters, I'd be interested in what separates Nils and Christian Seiler from the right on the edge of the top guys shooting 95% to pulling off random wins, to the GMs that are close but haven't won, like Tanfo Timmy, Lane Grease, and Types, and then new GMs. So he's kind of asking like tiers of top shooters and like what separates them, what makes the very top tier, the guys that are multi-time national champions, what separates them from maybe the guys that have one national champion or have come in second place a whole lot of times, and then what separates them from podcast GMs, guys that have won a lot of like sections and some area matches, so they're like decent GMs, and then what separates them from GMs, but they're GMs that maybe aren't winning any sort of titles or anything like that, right?
I don't know anybody like that.
I don't either. I mean, so what separates the Jake? I mean, basically like our top 7, right? Like there is a pretty clear break from our top 7 and the guys below that. What makes the difference there? That's a good question. What do you think, Jeff?
I mean, the first thing that comes to mind for like separating lower tiers from like people who are new GMs or GMs who haven't won a lot of matches to GMs who have won more matches and maybe just like slightly above that, like that group there. Like I almost think it's almost just consistency that separates those people. Because I mean, I see a lot of people shooting that I beat a lot of times that can shoot better than me, and like if we practice together, like they'd mop the floor with me, but at a match I'm able to be more consistent, and so I can win. So I think on those lower tiers, consistency plays a huge role in how things lay out, because you have to be super consistent to win matches.
How high up do you think that goes?
I mean, it depends on the division. If you're going to talk about like placements, right? Like top 5 or something. Because single stack, there's not as many shooters, right? So I could say, well, the top 3 are maybe like a different category or something like that. But in carry optics, it could be, top 12 could be that next tier. So yeah, I mean, we could say percentage wise, and the 95% might be a good number. Like say less than 95%, but still GM. Maybe consistency plays a larger role, and above that, it starts getting more technical, I guess, more ability based. I think different factors come in. I'm not sure what all of them are.
So, I mean, I think the top guys there, I think there's several things that happen for the guys at the very top. Because you do see was it Miriam Brantley that was like 4th or 5th at CO Nats last year?
Brantley Merriam, yeah.
Or I'm sorry, I want to call him Miriam Brantley Miriam, even though he was. I had him on my list. I'm still getting his name backwards because it's on practice score. Backwards. There's that whole comma thing. But you have a guy like that. Like he's capable of getting in that top 5% in that. He's top 5 and within the 95%. But then you also see a match where he finishes in the 80 percentile. So like there's that aspect of it which speaks to what Jeff's talking about. But the top guys, they're competing from a strategic standpoint. Like they have a different gear than most people, and then most people, they go to a match and like every stage they're almost just trying to match. They're just trying to shoot like the best that they can shoot on that stage. Right. Yeah, the guys at the top, they have a different gear where they're like, no, I'm shooting this fast enough to accomplish what I need to do on this stage without taking any extra risk. And, the guys that aren't at that top, they may want, or they may try to do that, but very rarely do they have the actual control and the ability of their shooting to actually be able to do that. Right. So I think that's part of it, is that they have a different gear than most people, and they can control which gear they make a decision on how hard they're going to go ahead of time. That leads into their consistency. They're also, they're better at competing. Like they're just better competitors. And why are they better competitors? That's a great question almost no matter what. Like it doesn't matter what you're in, whether you're in golf or you're in tennis or basketball or whatever. Like some people are just better competitors. And why is that the case? I don't know, but they usually end up at the top. If they're willing to put any sort of effort into it, the people who are better competitors end up at the top. And a guy like Jacob Hetherington, who has all the skill set in the world, and he's still learning how to compete. I think that's what's crazy about Jacob. He's still learning how to compete, but he competes very, very, very well.
I like to put math to exactly what you're saying, and you'll see like a lot of times people winning big matches. Not always, but a lot of times the person winning the big match, their 2 or 3 off stages will be in the 80s. Right?
Correct.
Everything else is 90s up to stage wins.
Yep.
Jacob wins matches, including Area 6, with the stage at 67% and another stage at 75% because he wins 6 other stages.
Yeah.
Which makes it seem a little bit like he's taking on additional risk and kind of going flat out, but has enough skill to sort of tank the damage that additional risk brings on.
Yeah.
Versus
I mean,
a lot of other people competing directly with him aren't going to use that top gear basically ever, unless they come down to 1 or 2 stages and there's a point gap they want to cover.
Yeah, I mean, Nils has won. I'm pretty sure I know he's won at least one, but I'm pretty sure he's won multiple nationals, never winning a stage. Right, and that's like Nils is kind of, in my opinion, Nils would. Jessica, you can tell Nils this, and it'll be funny. Nils has kind of taken Ben's place a little bit in that regard. Right, like Ben,
stagger. That's like a stagger move.
Like their shooting styles are like, they shoot very differently, like as far as like how they move, how they shoot and stuff like that. Like I see them very visually different, but how they compete at a nationals and how they win a nationals are fairly similar. In that, like they don't take any extra risk, and they generally wait for their competitors to screw up, and they're just good enough, just fast enough that their competitors will screw up, and then last day, if they need to make up some points, they have another gear that they can get to. But
I've heard other top shooters, including on this very podcast, when you had Mason Lane on a couple of years ago, he talked about not wanting to have an additional gear, and he claims not to have one. I don't believe him, but if that's important for him to tell that story, he doesn't have an unused gear, and he wants to win walking. He just wants to get better at shooting every year. He can show up at a match, just shoot his game, not have to think about anything, and that performance will automatically be the winning performance. Just be so good that you don't have to try.
Yeah, and I don't buy the Mason not have another gear, because I specifically remember a nationals, I think it was 2 years ago. I don't remember which division, probably production. And the Super Squad's last stage was actually a strong hand only stage, and he was like 35 points down or something like that, and he just went ape nuts on this weekend only stage, and he almost freaking won the match. Like he ended up having I think 1 or 2 mics on it. I don't remember exactly. He had a couple. But if he had got Charlie's on, I think on those that he missed on, like he would have won the match, like on a very small stand and shoot weekend only was part of it. It was kind of a standard stage. He almost won the match on it. So there is another gear there for Mason. He just right. I get his sentiment, but he does have another gear if he wants to.
So like we talked about this before too, is in practice, and someone in your Discord was saying this today, if you see Ben, Steger practicing, he can do things you never ever will see him do at a match, ever. Yeah. In terms of raw aggression. And most of the time in practice, they work. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right. And Ben was probably, for me on my match day, that's pretty much all I've got. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think Ben was, if I want to do better, I got to get better. Yeah. I think Ben was maybe the best our sport has seen in being able to control, like throttle control, like just be in control of what he can and can't do. I think he's maybe one of the best our sport's had from that regard. I watched a talk through of U.S. IPSC Nationals from 2019 that he did, and he got an early point lead. And then he's like, I'm just going to coast. And he's like, so on this stage, I just completely coasted. And you look at it, and he was 99.67% on it. And he said, all right. And then I got to this stage, and I knew the match was done, so I decided to express myself. and he put like 12% on the next person.
That sounds about right. So yeah, and
like
if
to
you
have that choice to be like, you know what, I'm not going to let anybody score on this stage start with a 9.
Yeah, like so few people can do that. I mean, Eric Graffel, right? Which he's not on our list because he's not American. He doesn't shoot USPSA, so he's not on our
Although
list.
he's
And he would
5 out of 144 of our nationals.
Yeah, I mean, he would just always be at the top of the list. Like, so it's almost no point in having Eric. Everybody else would just start at second. Even Nils after last year, everybody would start at second. So yeah, like that question, it brings up. I've said this before. It brings up the comment, the gap from making GM to winning nationals.
Yeah.
Or even be in the conversation when nationals is as large as the gap from Delta to GM, from D class to GM. Like that's how wide that gap is. So yeah.
Yeah.
And Jeff, you were right there. I think you'll be there again. I really do.
Hey, we'll see, man. We'll see.
No, I'm not being sarcastic. I'm not Jeremy. I am usually sarcastic, but in this particular instance, I'm not being sarcastic. I think you'll be there again.
Hey, I'm going to win. I'm going to win every match I shoot this year. So, that's
good luck, buddy. Good luck.
Every match.
And wasn't Jacob's very first nationals a single stack?
The one, yeah, he won single stack nationals. That was the one that my buddy Bob, I thought he had won, because Bob actually was I think leading going into the either last stage or second to last stage, and this was when it was in PASA, and Jacob he murdered him on a steel stage, like everybody. Like I mean, he put just a massive, because it was Bob and Nils, like they were 1-2, and Jacob really wasn't there, and then all of a sudden this is not when you were getting competitor apps and you were getting updates on. It was like I'm like sitting there, Bob's about to win this match. Because I had shot it. That was when you shot it all one day and you went home, and I shot on Friday and they were shooting the other day. And I was so excited. Bob's going to win this. He's going to beat freaking Nils. And then you finally get scores updated and freaking Jacob won. It's like, where did this kid come from? I mean, I knew of Jacob, but where did he even come from in the results? And yeah, he just absolutely ripped the last stage or last 2 stages of that match.
I don't think he's shot single stack since then either. Not in a match, I don't think.
Not nationals, because it hasn't been that same setup. I think that was the last one at PASA. If I'm remembering that correctly. I think that was the last match at PASA. There was USPSA nationals. They had a couple PASA single stack classics after that, but it didn't have the USPSA nationals attached to it.
Yeah.
So on the question, Jeremy, you said the people at the very top, they are phenomenal competitors. They have gears other people don't have. What else?
I mean, the consistency. You generally don't see them like tank stages. Like those guys, what they do in the short time. We've kind of talked like what they do as an overall match, but what they do in the short term, like you'll see a guy like Nils, like a Dave Savigny, like guys like that. You'll see them shoot a stage, and you'll see them make a mistake like you see other people make, like they shoot themselves into a standing reload, right? Or they have several pickup shots on steel or something like that. You're like, man, this stage is not going well for them. And then you get the scores from that stage, and it's like 85 or 90%, and they're still like they only gave up like a second and a half.
Last year at Production Nationals, Nils sent 4 rounds at a piece of steel and connected with it on the 5th. And again, it's like a 90% stage.
Yeah.
Versus me, like that's where I go off the rails. And if I find my way back on, it 7 or 8 seconds all told.
Right. Like their seemingly ability, the guys that are really, really at the top, their seemingly ability to make mistakes and then forget about those mistakes or just not compound those mistakes in real time is different. Because like I make a mistake like that and all of a sudden I'm like 3, 4, 5 seconds off on a stage because like that, it's like, oh, this is going bad. And you don't mentally give up, but it's just going bad and you just can't correct it. You can't get it back on the train, back on the tracks. And they seem to, when they make mistakes, they just make mistakes faster. And it just doesn't hurt them nearly as bad.
I like that. Make mistakes faster. And really, that's going to be a thing. I'm going to keep making mistakes, but I'm going to make them faster.
I mean, like
sure.
you see a lot of those guys shoot and they're not shooting perfectly. Like they're not mistake free, because almost any of those guys, if they shoot a stage mistake free, they'll win that stage. So any stage that they're not winning, they probably had some sort of screw up on of some kind. They just did it faster than everybody that didn't win the stage.
Yeah.
So I do think that's, how do you train that? Like how do you train like to recover from mistakes better? I don't know. Shoot more matches. Like I don't know. Compete more. Like spend more time competing. That's as good as I can.
You can also like work through your mistakes. Like when you're practicing and whatnot, like you screw up and do an extra reload, or you go to war on steel, or you miss a reload, or something like that. Something that gets you frazzled, or you slip, right? Maybe you slip and miss your footing. Like finish what you were gonna do. Work through it. I mean, that's one way you can practice it.
Yeah. No, that's fair. And if you're doing multiple runs on a stage or a drill or setup and you have a screw up, like, so as soon as you have that mess up, your goal is, okay, how close can I get to my fastest time with this mess up in here? That's something I should do better at in practice.
It's funny that you say fastest time, because if I'm training and I make a mistake, I'm not thinking, how can I get as close to my fastest time? I'm thinking afterwards, how cleanly can I execute what I wanted to be doing? Like how beautifully, like, can I get back on plan? And if I get back on plan, I'm not even going to look at the timer. If there's like I slipped and I fell, or I completely dropped the magazine on the reload or whatever it was, I'm not going to look at the timer because I don't care, right? Like that run doesn't count. But I'm going to think afterwards, how well did everything after that, once I got a magazine seated in the gun, how smoothly did everything run? And if it ran smoothly, I'm gonna feel pretty good about it.
Yeah, and now that you say that, the way I said it, I didn't necessarily mean to say that after you make the mistake that you try to make up that time for the rest of the stage, right? Like that's actually where the not good shooters screw up more, is they try to make up for their lost time. What Potato was saying is what I mean more, like, right? Like you make a big mistake and you screw up in two ways after that. You either give up and you just start going slower and you just make more and more mistakes, or you try to make up for lost time and then you start shooting frantic and your goblin goes off inside.
Or the worst thing in the world, when a person gives up and they decide to finish the stage one-handed. And I've seen surprisingly good shooters do this, and then it go wrong.
Oh, yeah.
They're like, oh my goodness, I give up, right? And so they're like, so then they just take the last two shots at the piece of the steel, strong hand only, and miss.
I don't know how many times I've seen Phil Strader do that.
It's weird that that's where your brain went.
Switch to the weekend.
Yeah, it's shocking that's where I would have thought of.
And like when it comes off, like, yeah, he gets to walk away like, see, look, I can do it one-handed. And when it doesn't, man, it's just like watching figure skaters fall.
Right. Oh yeah, Phil Strader in a tutu.
Crash.
Yeah.
That's good.
All right. Well, that was a good chat. I think hopefully we answered Heller's question.
Yeah,
on that.
I think so. Let's go ahead and give our shout outs and whatnot. So Discord shout out from our second tier Patreon, coming at you from Jay Headland Shooting. Shout out to all USPSA members to vote in their respective elections and presidential elections and be a part of the solution and not the status quo. Area elections and presidential elections. So yeah, get out, vote. We're probably gonna do. I say probably. We might do interviews. We were discussing it beforehand. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Those things are not terribly fun, but maybe we'll get Jeremy to spice one of them up.
We'll see. See what we can do.
Yeah. Also, today's episode is again brought to you by Shooters Connection. So we really appreciate their support, continued support for the podcast and the shooting sports. They sponsor a lot of matches throughout the country. So please use the link in the description to support the podcast, support Shooters Connection. They are run by competitive shooters. They are doing same-day shipping for you guys, getting what you need quickly. And so be sure to support them if you want to support the podcast and the sport. So thank you, Shooters Connection. And, oh yeah, Discord link is the Patreon link in the description. If you want access to the Discord, it's 2 tiers. There's first tier, which is just access to the Discord. Second tier is shout out tier. You're in the shout out, as well as you can hop in while we're recording live and you can jump into the chat and throw comments up there and everything. So,
like if you were hand beveling, for instance, if you were working on a slide or a frame, you could do that while you listened.
You could, you could make comments about Jeremy's mustache and whatever have you. Oh, we also got a potato for president in here. Or presidente.
Yeah, I think it's for presidente.
What are the chances
for Dominican
of
that?
Beer. Potato's going to run for Area 7 in the next Area 7 election. We're going to push him into that.
Really?
I would prefer not to, sir.
That's okay. Yeah, you don't care if you want to. This is more of was it the Romans that would force somebody to be Caesar, right? Am I remembering this correctly? Like originally in the Romans, like it wasn't because they wanted people who didn't want to be in that position, so they would force somebody to be in it. Am I remembering this correctly?
Probably not.
Jeff, I'm looking to you as the historian.
I thought Potato was shaking his head like I got this right.
But
there's a history buff out there.
Yeah, based on Jeremy's track record, I'm gonna bet he's wrong on this one, but he could be right.
Well, just put it in Rocky movie terms, and then we can be sure he's wrong.
Occasionally.
So was this the Apollo Creed? The Romans used to have to take the Apollo Creed.
Oh no, this definitely would have been with the Russians.
God.
Definitely would have been something with the Russians in Rocky 2.
And that was Rocky 1, right?
No, the Russian wasn't Rocky 1. Rocky 1.
Tell us what it was, Jeremy.
Has to have been number 2.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Hope you enjoyed it. Again, if you have comments or complaints about the power rankings or things we got wrong or people we missed, let us know. We're happy to hear about that. I'm happy to have you argue with me. And practice hard, keep shooting, keep training, and let's get some new names in the top 7 this year. So you guys need to train up. And let's bust through that top 7 and break that open.
Talking to you, Joey Sauerland.
That's right. And
Jeremy, you need
Scott Brown.
you need like an end of podcast catchphrase or something, you know? Like Cody always had, "Don't shoot like a coward," right? You need.
And
something
you
like
used
that.
to have something about like we're gonna cut it off here, but it was not.
Oh yeah, let's pinch it off.
Let's pinch it off here.
Oh gosh, that was the worst. No, I don't
It
like
really
that.
was, man. It was always
So we should start that back up for sure then.
No, we can't do that. I'll try to come up with something that's somewhat like, if I think of something like "don't shoot like a coward," that makes me want to say something that's not appropriate to say. So we'll have to come up with something. But for now,
We'll just pinch it off.